So let's begin then with the agenda. So today we're going to just do this introduction of the logistics, etc. That'll be shorter in the coming weeks. Then we're going to go into what is the edge of chaos. Okay, so we're still in the first step of the WeLand, which is creating the soil, which essentially is a lot of diagnosis. Like what is going on? Let's meet the people. Let's start understanding what is happening here, right? So one of the frameworks we use a lot is the edge of chaos. Okay. The next one is we're going to give you some space in small groups to review homework. And then we're going to go to a collective space for half an hour to review if you have questions or comments or observations. And also we are going to share what I can't remember if Eulali, I think, mentioned right at the very beginning of the class, that this can be the regenerative spiral can be related to many other aspects of life or of our society. So we are in fact going to share an example of how it can be related after answering your questions. Then we go into the homework space of group of the VUCA homework. So that'll be the second group breakout. But I understand there were quite a few people who had questions about the homework. So our apologies because we didn't upload the image that went with the description of the homework. So we can really quickly explain it. And then in your small groups, you can go through it as well. And then we go through why is VUCA so important? Again, it's one of our staple analysis tools at the very beginning of doing a community process as practitioners, and we can share some of our experiences with you and build upon it with you as well. And then the Klopening will introduce the homework assigned for next week and continue on. Any questions at this point? No. Okay, super. Okay, so I'll invite you back in. Another technical element is that it's really helpful if you access the mural on your computer, just because it's a lot easier. Is there anybody with a lot of difficulty though accessing the mural on their computer? Or is everybody good? A second, Okay, so that is good. Yes, everybody's all right, super. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Ana Maria.
Yes, I think I have a question or I need a clarification for something. So for the last week's mural, I see the VUCA that in the description part, image 6, there is the strategy and the leverage points. It's under the complexity, whereas in the table with image 4, the complexity is related to the transparency. And the uncertainty is related to the leverage point. So I feel like the definitions don't really match in both pictures.
You're totally right. We actually had corrected that and we uploaded the wrong image. So I will upload that really quick. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah,
I was just confused for a second.
No, you're absolutely right. And we had found that error in the book and then we copied it in here too. Okay, so I'll fix that. We have the correct one. So I'll update that. Thank you so much, Ana Maria. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so I will do that in maybe 15 minutes after the edge of chaos. Any other questions though? Then before we get going? Okay, super then. Great. So if you go into the slide 9, which is edge of chaos, I'm just going to invite you to kind of get the ball rolling. If people could just identify some key characteristics of highly structured environments. Okay, so for example, what would a highly structured environment or organization look like? Or even community? Maybe you can just pop it out and I can write it in Post-its here. Right, and Oscar has also kindly put, actually, oh, perfect. Thank you very much, Oscar. We usually use 2 images. If you slide down a little bit more, you will see a wave. Okay, so you have on one side order and on the other side chaos. Okay, so what we're going to introduce today is a concept of based on structure. So why is structure so important? Why is the structure of our society so important? Okay, and also society, we could talk about family, organizations, kind of like what Eulalia was saying at the beginning, like this is a nested perspective. It's like a fractal, it's like a snowflake. So everything we're talking about here can be scaled up or scaled down. So maybe you could give examples of what a very organized, orderly structure could be. You can just pop it out, popcorn style.
Like Judith here, could it be like a penitentiary system, like jail?
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah, that's a very structured environment. They wake up at one time, they eat breakfast at this time. Yeah, excellent. Perfect. Anything else?
Ana Maria here. I'm just thinking of organizations such as governmental agencies or something like this, like
Very
structured
good.
in terms of, I don't know, bureaucracy. I feel like it's quite a...
Yeah, that's a perfect example, Ana Maria. Excellent, thank you.
And hi, Maya here. It's like very rigid, like a lack of flexibility, adaptation.
Excellent. Exactly. Sorry, is your name pronounced Maja or Maya?
I'm Maya, like in Spanish would be written with Y.
Okay, super nice. Oh, you speak Spanish too. Nice. Okay, great. Okay, yes, exactly. That's an excellent description of those structures. Okay, so maybe we can go into what are these structures like. So Maya said they're really rigid. Ana Maria says that it's bureaucratic. Anything else that we could use to describe these very organized, orderly structures?
A tree, for example.
A tree. A tree. I'm going to pass this on to our environmental scientist in residence, Oscar. Where would you put the tree?
No, the tree would be in complexity.
Yeah.
But we're going to go into that later.
Yeah. No, it's a good observation. No. Okay, so organized, very structured environments. We often talk about like highly organized religion. So the Vatican, or the army. You know, those would be kind of like on the extreme end of this wave, right? So in the blue, over here in I'll drag a Post-it over there so we can mark it. So mark it in yellow. So this would be extremely structured. And I'll put a purple where it would be the kind of the opposite end. Oops. Yeah. And so in the organized structure, so exactly what Maya was saying, so it's rigid. So maybe we can, what would be a strength of these organizations though? So it is rigid, but anything interesting about them?
I would say predictability, that everything is predictable, or at least that's the aim, to predict as much as possible to be sure about the processes.
Excellent, Laura. Yeah. Yeah, very
Really,
predictable. Julia.
like really clear function of the elements, because they are really few. for each element, and so it is clear. Also the responsibility of each element is clear.
Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect, Julia. Thank you.
I'm
Yeah, so it's a lot of clarity. Yep. Keep going.
Ana Maria here. Yeah, I was about to say efficiency, but then thinking about bureaucracies, they're not really efficient. So yeah, I guess the purpose is to be efficient, but at the end of the day, it's not really.
Yeah. Okay, Ana Maria. In fact, you're in, I think it's in 4 weeks, when we go into, or 3 weeks, when we go into the resilience cycle, we'll discover why these structures have this risk of falling into the rigidity trap. Actually, it's what it's called. Very, very good observation. So we know that these organizations are like really structured, really rigid, cumbersome, sometimes difficult to manage. The communication is not super clear. There's the leadership or decision making is one place, but it has these other aspects as well, that there's this clarity, there's efficiency sometimes, there's clear decision making lines at least as well. So what if we go to the other extreme, to chaos? What do we find there? What examples do we have in our human environment at this point? And then we'll go into the natural environment. So what examples do we have of chaotic spaces?
Maya here again, Slovenian government at the moment.
Okay. Yes, good example. Some governments like Slovenia. Anything else? I mean, a typical one would be a gathering at a house, a house party. You know, there's kind of some kind of organization happening, but it's quite chaotic. You know, it's very unpredictable. Another could be a protest, a street protest, or in Spanish or Castellano is manifestación. You know, that would so there's people are there for a reason, but the way that they're engaging and organizing or moving is enters into the chaotic sphere. Yeah, Judith. Mm-hmm.
Yes, sorry, I didn't know which one it was, but I have the feeling that it is not completely chaos. Demonstration or manifestation, because like there's certain level of organization, and like I would imagine like a tornado or tsunami being complete chaos, but I don't know. I don't know if I feel comfortable understanding demonstrations are as complete chaos.
Okay, I'll get into why, but that's
Okay.
a really, really good observation. Thank you very much, Judith. As a longtime activist since I was this big, it's really, really important to also, you're raising an excellent observation of the scale, right? So it's not, I wouldn't put it at the extreme, like a house party, I would put at the extreme, but a protest would be a little bit more towards the line to complexity, but not there yet. So there's structure, people know where they're going down this street, they're going to go that way. But in general, the behavior in Spanish or Catalan, el comportamiento, no, is somewhat unpredictable, right? So there's this degree of unpredictability. What is really, and a lot of, loose informal groups and social movements would definitely be here as well. What is wonderful about the chaos structure? What does it enrich how does it enrich our lives, these kinds of spaces? What does it offer?
Yeah, here it's Juan. Well, chaos gives you the opportunity to break all the rules and restart something new, something you create from zero.
Excellent, Joan. Thank you very much.
And sorry, about last thing, I could say it could be at the same time order and chaos at the same time, like in a war that maybe soldiers are in chaos, but at the same time, who is managing? There is an order, like the high level members of.
It's you're bringing us to excellent. So you're bringing in again the double paradigm. That's a really lovely observation. Thank you very much, Juan. So there's different behaviors that can happen simultaneously. Absolutely. There's a distinction there, and I'll make it before I hand it over to Oscar to talk about complexity that you've raised, Joanne, that I think is really important for the rest of the group to understand as well, is that sometimes when we have order and chaos, it doesn't actually mean we have complexity. It does mean that those two patterns are happening at the same time, and that can be actually quite challenging. So how do we bridge that? How do we surf this edge of chaos and pull in what's really enriching us? So in the chaos, what usually people also observe is there's so much creativity. This is where the ideas happen. This is where those wild solutions, where people are like, how on earth did you come up with that? That's what happens. That's what's born in that space, in that chaos space. But then to channel it into something that is operable is then entering into complexity. And this is where, as change makers, as community catalysts, we do our work. You know, we are surfers. You know, we surf the edge of chaos here. And how do you do that? I'm going to pass it on to Oscar.
Hey everyone. Then following what Erica said, was saying, like if you go into the formal informal structures, that I think it's the number 8, you can see, right, the structure, it's in Catalan, but the informal structure looking a little bit chaotic, as we were kind of describing, and the structure, the formal structures looking very organized, because they all come from a center, and then they're quite even. No? There's one center and the rest are even. But if we look at the right and we see this wave, do you see that there's order, complexity, and chaos, right? Like what happens when we put together order and chaos? What do we get? When we look at, someone said a tree before. When we look at a tree, do you see chaos or do you see order?
Order.
Both.
Both. When you look at the forest, you see chaos or you see order?
Both.
Both.
None of them.
None of them? And when you look at a human being, we are order or we are chaos?
Depending on the human being.
Yeah. Some ones are more chaotic than others. Yeah, I agree with that. But life, it's based on complexity. It's where when you look into a forest, there's so much structure that we're not even capable of expressing it. It's like there's so many relationships into the different organisms and the different elements of the forest that it's infinite. We can't even understand how complex it is. But at the same time, there's so much life and so much energy in it that it's super chaotic and creative and just emerging and doing new things all the time, moving in different directions and changing, adapting constantly, right? Like that's kind of the thing about complexity. That's why the theory is called the edge of chaos. It's like, if we want to try to walk at the edge of chaos, this is where we can be super creative, and at the same time, we can sustain it. We can build upon. It's not just ephemeral creativity like in chaos, but something that we can build. It's like when we were talking about paradigms, when there's a new paradigm emerging, sometimes could be something chaotic, spontaneous, that it just poof. But when we start putting a structure into that paradigm, could be relationships, could be organizations, could be different types of human structures, social structures, or municipal structures, then what we're doing is consolidating that paradigm and making it more real and sustaining it through time. You know what I mean? There's any question on this? Like, what you see that, well, there's the give here moving, like trying to express the complexity. It looks like chaos, but you see that there's order. Any questions on that? Or comments?
So you think the idea will be a balance, a complete balance among the two of them, like 50-50, or?
That's kind of, that's why it's there's one book that is called Surfing the Edge of Chaos. Like, there's no way of putting balance. Like, it's the only thing that you can do is moving into dynamic balance. When you're entering in complexity, the things like that you're going to have to adapt and move all the time to maintain a certain amount of balance, because there's no middle point. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
And then if we move up to the number 9, I think, yeah, number 9, that it's the edge of chaos, you see that there's a whole diagram on it. You can see that at one side we have collapse, at the other side we have order. Control at the end of the line. Then yes, we put it in percentage here actually, but it's just a way of expressing it. Eh? Then when we get out of collapse and we move into chaos, we have a little bit of a structure, tons of chaos. Then we move into complexity, we move into order, and we move into control. The thing here is that when control and collapse touch, what do we have? What's going on there? Imagine something that where something very rigid and something extremely chaotic are almost in the co-living in the same moment.
Another from Spain here, I would say conflict.
Yeah, conflict, it's a perfect example. Like, imagine that you have so much tension in a nation that it just, boom, suddenly emerges like an internal war, or you have a dictatorship and then you have an uprising. No, it's like, it's so rigid, the structure, the social structure, it's so rigid, it's so tense that it doesn't flow into more structure, into more chaos in a more or less kind of a slow way, like fluid, but it breaks into it. It's so rigid that suddenly, boof, just explodes in tons of chaos, right? And that chaos then needs to be reorganized little by little, needs to be reorganized, generating new small structures to be able to readapt. Like what you get there, it's trauma, social trauma. And to heal social trauma, you need to regenerate the social web, the social threads that make that the web, the community, the social system can start moving as a community again. Because if not, what you have is individuals fighting for survival by their own. You know what I mean?
Ana Maria here. I actually have a question about the time that it takes. Like, is there a certain amount of time that it takes to go from trauma to, again, like, to recovery or something like this? Because I mean, being from Romania, I see that like after 30 years after the fall of communism, there is still trauma, and I really, like, I don't know how long it will take until, or like what is needed and what can accelerate the healing. And yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like places like Colombia or places that they had been in war for over 50 years, then the trauma is consistent and it keeps going because the levels of structural violence are really, really high. And the structural violence doesn't let the healing process to go on. And that what makes it to generate, to bring in the regenerative spiral, what it's doing, it's pushing the paradigm down for the people to not emancipate, to not empower themselves and be able to generate complexity. Then the way it's trying to catalyze that, trying to understand and facing the structural violence. That we're going to go on to that a little bit further in the next days, how to be able to generate lobby and to face and confront structural violence. But like there's like indigenous communities are really aware of this type of behavior of a community, and sometimes like there's an example of a community that they have there was like some kids, some young kids, they raped one of the girls of the community, and the community, what they did was to create a healing process for all of them, not only for the girl, but for the whole group of youth, right? It's like they want a straight to reconciliation, but that's also because of the understanding of the balance of a community. Imagine that you only do the healing process for the girl. That's totally okay. But the thing is that those youth people they're probably acting that way because they suffered the structural violence. If you punish them and then you point at them and there's no reconciliation and no healing process for them, that could become, if you look at the whole organism, the community as an organism, that's a sickness for the whole community. Those kids could be enraged and mad to the rest of the community for 2 or 3 generations. Their kids could be judged for what they did, and they could be mad and fighting back and reacting to the community. Then one of the things, it's to be compassionate about the people for the structural violence that they suffered, but also aware that the whole community needs to be in balance, and the reconciliation and the healing process of the community can last, if you don't do it properly, that can last, the trauma can last generations. You know what I mean? I'm gonna pass it to Erica for if there's any more questions about the edge of chaos, because if not, we're gonna go into the deep dive of the regenerative deep dive.
Hi.
Yep, go for it. Okay, and also I see that the chat is really hot, which is great. Please ask questions, because when Oscar is talking, I can answer the questions on chat and vice versa. And if it's a technical thing, then we have our super Alex, who is able to talk or to answer any questions around that.
I think Kate is unfrozen now.
Sorry?
I don't, Kate, you wanted to say something or no? No.
Okay. So
can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, my internet is a little slow today, so I'm getting a delay. This is Kate from South Africa.
We can hear you well.
I suppose I have a question. You can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thanks. I have a question. I understand the concept of surfing the wave and the chaos, but I suppose my question is like, how do we use this model? Like when I think about South Africa and the intergenerational trauma on so many levels and the current trauma, it's like I can identify all the chaos and all the order and all the clashing points, but I suppose that's what we're going to delve into deeper, but how do we use this?
Thank you, Kate. That's perfect, because that's exactly what we wanted to talk right now. If you go into the regenerative deep dive, one of the models behind this one, it's the edge of chaos. And when we're in the lower paradigms, what we have is that the order and the chaos are completely separated. And when we're at, this is the same model as the other day, but this time, instead of focusing on an environmental perspective, it's focused in the social perspective. Then we're at the bottom, we're underneath the threshold of legality. What we have is that order and chaos are completely separated. And we can have like a dictatorship that generates tons of chaos because it looks for order, but what it gets at the end, it's precarity, chaos, individualism, and it's generating chaos for the whole society. And as we move on into the next paradigms, we're starting to get a little bit more and more complexity. Like just above the threshold of legality, we go on to type of democracy that it's directive. It's inside of the legal boundaries. It's inside of the right. How do you say stadadret?
Rule of law.
The rule of law. It's bounded by the rule of law. But still, we all know mayors that act like dictators, just that they act inside of the rule of law, right? And when they can, they do it. They do go beyond the rule of law, but underneath for anyone to see it. And that's, at least in Spain, it's a very typical behavior, very traditional. We have corruption all the time. And but here, what you see is that power, it's a little bit balanced. They, like in the authoritarian, the dictatorship can do whatever they want. But when you're a directive, they already have to be, they're bounded, and there's certain things that they could not do, right? They would like to do it, but they can't, because the power had been a little bit distributed, and the situation of the power situation, it's a little bit more complex. If we move one above, we have a type of democracy that it's consultative. And what they do, it's not, many times it's not because they want to, it's because they have to, because the society had organized themselves a little bit more, and they push, they generate a push for the whole system to be a little bit more democratized. In the other one was the greenwashing. In this case, it's the consultative. It's when they ask you, what do you want to do? But then they do whatever they want. But it looks like they want to be more democratic, because they even can, like, you can even have like a mayor that it's a male with a shirt that says, I'm a feminist. We had a mayor in Barcelona that did that, and he was not feminist at all. But it's like there's an intention, or there's an intention to look like, they look for recognition, but they don't look for recognition because they want to only, but also because they have to. When we move in the next one, that in the environmental one was sustainability, in this one, we call it participatory. That means that they ask you a question, and whatever you say, it's exactly what they're going to do. Well, that's a clear improvement, because now, at least when we say something, that's going to happen, right? Then the power distribution, it's even more. It's because now we're capable of actually changing things. But we have to keep in mind who's asking the question. In this paradigm, it's still them who's asking the question, and who has the power is who asks the question. This is when we move into the glass ceiling. And if we go beyond in the restorative decentralized system, it's when we start asking the questions, when there's a space for the people to ask the questions that need to be answered, right? And when we move beyond this, it's when we start seeing social structures that are completely decentralized based on dialogue and deliberation. Yeah. Is there questions about this? Do you understood the relationship between the edge of chaos and the regenerative spiral?
Oscar, you have a few questions on the chat if you want to have it a look.
Yeah. Awesome.
441, Jochin.
Can you look at that and answer that? Is there someone that wants to ask a question verbally, and Eric is looking at answering the questions in the chat? Or any comment or something?
I do have, Judith. So I do understand very good the, so to say, non-hierarchical ways of governance. I do have like a ceiling of imagination how this would be in bigger, so not from a village or a city, but like a country. This is where I kind of like my imagination and creativity gets kind of collapsed because I cannot see it. I cannot imagine it. So I don't know if you would like to clarify or like go into that.
Yes, awesome, Judith. Yeah, if you that's the thing about complexity, and it's a perfect. It's a really good question actually. An state, it's based on order, and it's based on a structure. And if you want to try to change in a state from as a whole, and you want to modify in a state from the state level, I think you're not going to be able to do it. Because the state had been suffering so many waves of colonization, and it's completely bounded and surrounded by administrative boundaries and abstractions. Then if you want to generate a system that it's complex and that it's rooted and regenerative, it needs to be from the local level up. Then you start creating like, if we really care about climate change, we're going to have to start looking at bioregions as a whole. Like Donella Meadows, a person that died, a professor in Massachusetts Institute of Technology, really known, that we're going to talk more about her. She defined 50 years ago that each bioregion of the planet should have an observatory on how is the whole environment moving for us to be able to monitor and to relate to the environment at the same time. That still nowadays, 50 years after, it's impossible for the administrative boundaries, because the administrative boundaries, they don't coincide with the bioregions, and then it's impossible to match that because they're not capable of organizing themselves for it. Then if we want to get to a bigger scale, what we need is to organize many smaller scales and keep going upwards from here. When we get to the state level, and we're going to have to, if we really want to change this whole thing, then the state, it's not going to matter anymore. We're going to be talking from a completely different place. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Does it has also to be with ego, that for example, how the state is working is very difficult for them to let go this manner of working because of ego also, not only because of administration.
You could put the thing about the deep dive today in the regenerative spiral, it's for you to see that this is not only a level of paradigms, but it's in a scale that helps you bring value to anything. Okay, you can put, in this scale, you can put whatever you want, and then just bring it up. And you, in each level, you bring value to it. Then you can use your organization, you can use yourself, you can use your family, anything, you can put it there, more or less say, I think that the system that I want to look in, it's in this level. How can I do it to bring value to it, to make it more complex? You can do exactly the same with ego. You can, like a person with a strong ego, very strong ego, would be very at the very top, and a person that is capable of making its ego much more complex and engaging, and an ego that is capable of be open and generous would be clearly at the top. This is a little bit, as I said the other day, like Maslow pyramid. No, we go from the individual to the collective. Then it's the same thing. Like in this case, if we have a system that is very authoritarian, it means that the people that is leading this system probably have a huge ego to be able to support it.
Okay, super. Maybe with your permission, what we wanted to do was give you some time to share in groups of 3 or 4, because your first homework was to, sorry, Oscar, can you silence your, sorry, I hear my echo. Okay, so your first homework was to assess the paradigms in your local community, right? So your community could be a neighborhood, a town, a city, but someplace where there's a lot of diversity. And as we know, just like people, cities and towns are very, very diverse. So you can't peg someone or to be specifically in one paradigm, but a city or a town, a rural community does have a tendency to be in a certain paradigm, but it has the others there, right? So maybe we are in a really, really oppressed society that is in conventional practice or even below. You know, Oscar and I see some people here who also worked with Peace Brigades International. We worked in armed conflict. So we were clearly in environments that were very, very, very fragile and with a lot of trauma present. But there were so many paradigms that were breaking through that glass ceiling like nobody's business, and were incredibly inspiring examples of restoration and reconciliation and even regeneration. So I understand that you were thinking about your local community and talking about the different paradigms. So we wanted to give you, I think maybe 10 minutes. We'll call you back. We'll just calculate to see if we still have the full 10 or 12 minutes, and let you share a little bit about your reflections on how this thinking on the paradigms worked out for you, if you found it easy or difficult, what you came up with, and compare experiences with your colleagues. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah. Okay, super. So Alex is going to put you into groups of 4, although some people might be groups of 3.
Yep.
Yeah. And all you have to do when he gives you the invite is just click OK. And off you go. And then we'll call you back and you'll have 60 seconds to say yes or no.
Okay, here we go.
Hi, Kate. Did you get an invite?
Hi guys. My computer keeps my internet bugging out, so I didn't get an invite, but possibly because it's and reconnected.
No worries.
Thanks.
And I know how that is. In San Juan Los Fons, it's impossible. We're in Barcelona right now.
Oh, nice. Is it possible to send another one? Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Trying, yeah.
Alex is doing that right now.
Did you receive it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Kate? She left. Okay.
And we have Silvia and Marta and Oluwakemi, but I'm not sure. I know Oluwakemi had some difficulty with the connection also last time. Bueno, cap problema. Els pots bueno, estaven assignades, no, aquestes?
Sí, en principi està tothom assignat.
Okay.
No sé, no deuen ser-hi o...
Bueno. Què tal?
Bé. Volia comentar-te, Òscar, que a la reunió del dijous he parlat amb l'Albert. Estàs al cas que tenim una reunió del dijous perquè m'expliquis lo del...
Hello, welcome back. How was it? I don't know if it was long enough or was it a good amount of time? Okay, we can also see, because we have lots of material to give you guys, but we also want you guys to like have good debates in your small groups. So maybe at the end of the class, if you're saying 15 minutes is better than 10, that's totally fine with us, and we can adapt happily. Let's actually do it really quick now. For things like this, for sharing, is 15 minutes a little bit better? And you can say yes or no. Okay, that's a big yes. Okay, sorry about that then. Maybe we can pick up some of what you've weren't able to get into and share in we have about 5 minutes that we wanted to field some questions, a little bit more than 5. And then we're going to go into the VUCA. So any reflections or comments or observations that you wanted to share that came out in your group? You can pop out. I think Annabelle might be talking, but your microphone. Oh, no, sorry. Okay, it was green. Okay. Any reflections or questions?
Hello.
Yes.
Kevin and Jazz from Mallorca.
Hello. Hi.
So for us, it was interesting to hear the good thing that came from other people's point of view in their own environment, where our one, even if we're coming from a beautiful place where life is still pleasant, we definitely identify that we are in the trauma collapse zone.
Yeah.
Okay, regardless of what's happening in our life and our actions, in general, our system is collapsed and traumatized. But it was beautiful to hear Lola, for example, just like telling us everything that's happening in her town in this moment. And that's also helped us also to say, okay, it is true that regardless of the generality, the crisis brings opportunities, and there are some small actions, but it's sprouting on the island also, and it's nice, and we are part of this, but it's not the general consensus. And it all depends from what you can see and what you can experience from where you're standing. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin. And sorry, Kevin and Jazz, did you say? Okay, nice to meet you, sir. Oscar got locked out. Before I get another feedback or observation, you mentioned something that is actually really important, I think, for the rest of the group as well, Kevin and Jazz, which is this where we're working from and when we are doing change catalyzation, right? So if we're using this regenerative development framework, well, as practitioners, What we have found, because we've been doing this now for just over 20 years, that at the beginning it was our thing was like, the world is in crisis, the world is in chaos, we have so much work to do. I mean, we're going down. The world is in a terrible state. And what we found was that people did not rise to the occasion and didn't join our movements and didn't engage so readily. It was just a very small percentage. But when we started working from the regenerative development framework, it actually gave people hope. So the discourse changed from a bit of a doomsday, like everybody is aware that our situation is in crisis right now, as you said, Kevin. But it's how you frame it that can be so transformative. Like as community catalysts, all of you, all of us, one of our responsibilities is to add value, raise up the energy of the field, of the community, and give them hope that we can smash that glass ceiling, like we can do better. We can, go into the restorative and then reconciliatory and then regenerative paradigms. And that's why this exercise, because we know that most of your communities are probably really down low, but there are some pretty inspiring examples that give hope. So maybe the next question then is, what gives hope? What have you found that gives a discourse and of hope and adds value and increases the energy in your communities? Or if you have other observations too or questions. Thank you, Kevin. Anybody else? So many, I'm switching through the pages. Any other reflections?
Yeah, Erica, Kate says in the chat that she observed the connection between privilege and being able to act retroactively.
Okay, I'm going to pass that to Oscar.
Yeah, there's definitely that, and I don't know, maybe you noticed, because sometimes it goes a little bit, it's difficult to see that in this model, but it's one of the things that I love about this model the most, is that, yes, definitely, that's totally true. The more you go up the model, the more privilege you have. And that's one of the bases of Maslow, right? Like the more you're going up, the more developed of a human being you become, and therefore you have more privilege and more power as a person. But where is the limit of economical privilege? Do you think, where would you put a really wealthy person? In which paradigm?
But wealthy in which sense? With money or?
Yeah, money.
Well, I think this question is not okay because it depends.
Yeah, I agree, it depends. But if you only think about money, then you cannot go more than consultative or greenwashing, because above that, that's not what you're valuing. Like you're valuing other things in participatory, in that paradigm. What you're valuing is collective, you're valuing equality, you're valuing consensus, you're valuing social justice. You don't value material goods. And when you're above that, what you're valuing it's generosity, networks, capacity of helping others to evolve, or spirituality. There's many other values, but money it's not one of them. Then many times when we think about privilege, it's like when we put at the very top of the hierarchy, we would put the wealthier person of the planet. But in this case, if you look at the very top, you probably would find Aboriginal people that they need no money at all, that they're completely part of a collective, that they're completely in harmony with their surroundings, and they live a really intense and coherent life. And that other people would probably put the indigenous people at the very bottom, just because they have no clothes and no cars. Isn't that interesting? I find that always very interesting.
But sorry, I'm protesting again here.
Okay, good, go for it.
No, but if you are like, I wrote the question here, if you are born in a rich family, it's same as if you are born in a poor family. So, you know, it's not something that it defines you later on, but it's not your decision at the end, you know, where you're born. So I don't know, I wouldn't say that someone like born in a rich family with 20 years old is, you know.
Definitely not. I'm stereotyping. Like one of the things that it's important about this is that all these models, all of them, what they help is to generate new synapses. But it's important to understand that they're all a lie. None of them are real or true. You know, what it's like, what the only thing that they pretend is for us to be able to understand the world in a different perspective. But we're classifying, stereotyping many times to be able to put people in different paradigms, and that's not what's important. What's important is to understand the patterns and the dynamics of the community to be able to evolve together. But definitely, of course, Maya, you're absolutely right. Of course, exception is the rule.
All right, and we have Zia.
I wanted to say that for me, it feels like it has to do with like the conception of power and access to power. And I wonder, like, if I don't know, because it seems like we're discussing like a power that's like top-down power or a power that's collective power. And there's folks that have access to more like economic resources or privilege in the sense of like the structural systems that we operate in often have access to a lot more like top-down power that allows them to be in different moments, like allows them to be in the positions where they're asking the questions as opposed to being consulted. But then it feels like as you move like above the line, the glass ceiling of legitimacy, we begin to talk about power as collectively built. And therefore, like different folks have access to different power within that system. But I'm wondering if I'm understanding correctly, or like if that, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, no, excellent, Zia. Yeah, really, really astute observation. It has to do with power. It has to do with privilege. In fact, there's a few kind of like hot debates or transformative debates that if a community engages in them, it can actually, it's such a leverage point that it can actually be a domino effect of other transformations. One of them is a conversation about power and privilege and governance, right? So that's one of the elements that we're going to be talking about also, I think, in the third or fourth session. And also power and privilege, and we'll give you a couple of activities that you can do online. We'll be doing them, but we can also explain how we do them in person, because it's also perhaps a bit more fun. And the other hot debates are gender. You know, if you give, if you bring a couple really disruptive questions on gender and have people position themselves, you could, what we do is often a barometer or a thermometer. So we draw it on the floor and we do like 0 to 10, you know, or yes and no. And then we ask people to position themselves and we give them provocative questions, you know, on gender or power or privilege. The fourth topic, it's actually really closely related to power and privilege, is property. Actually, we're seeing that there's real transformation happening around gender and property conversations that generate other seemingly unrelated changes because we resolve those issues on gender and property as well. So yeah, the really, really good observation there, Zia. I feel like I could keep going, but we want to cover VUCA as well. I don't know if there's any other questions or observations. And again, I encourage you, you can use Slack. I know it's sometimes hard to kind of get into it, but for each of the modules, you can use Slack to have debates, you know, and how you do that is like, maybe you can propose a question and other people can comment. And I am really getting into Slack. So if you put questions on it, then Oscar and I can also engage with you. And that can be during the week in between these classes, but also between yourselves to really like get out and share the tools that you use to cover this. Oh, Kate, sorry.
Yeah. And just to comment, I'm contemplating this spiral, and I realized there's like the obvious ones. I realized within the communities, there's the same spiral going on invisibly. There's a whole bunch of like invisible power dynamics on how the community self-organizes or assumed privilege or assumed power. And that for me is something really challenging when I work with the communities here, that there's a lot of invisible stuff at play. So they'll present a directive to you and they'll tell you that those are the people making the decisions, but they're actually not people making the decisions. There's a whole bunch of invisible things going on with this one's grandfather. If he says no, it's a no from everyone. Or that auntie who actually owns the farm where they're growing the food says, like, she can put chemical on and she has the say, but that doesn't get revealed to you immediately. It's just an observation that came up.
Oh, I just want to answer all these questions. You have super good questions. So there's two things. I'm gonna flag them because we can't really get into them today, but we are going to get into them. So you've mentioned two things. One is when you have these tensions, and that was your previous comment when we were talking about the regenerative spiral. So when there's a tension, how do we resolve that? So we're going to introduce, but again, that's in, I can't remember which session, but it's called the reconciliation, okay, model. And then now what you were talking about is critical yeast and critical mass. Okay, so I'm just going to name them now. Critical yeast, so in Spanish is la masa crítica. Yeah. Sorry, did I say critical yeast or critical mass? Sorry. Critical mass, masa crítica, critical yeast, llevat crític or levadura crítica. Yes, sorry, I got confused here. Slightly dyslexic. And so we're going to talk about how to activate those. And so the critical yeast is linked to 10 community catalyst roles. Okay, and those we're going to go into detail when we're doing the community engagement phase, which again I think is it's a little bit further up. But just so you know, these are really good questions, Kate. Hold them, and we can even start doing them on Slack a little bit, so you can start reading about them and thinking about them. But really, really good. Yeah. Okay. All right. I am. Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I have another question which I'd like to ask again from the regenerative spiral. Going back to the question I put on Slack last week, because I still don't understand how to use this tool. And I don't know if I'm the only one here. I understand the list and the description that you've given back on the Slack, but the access is for me is something that I don't understand. And if you're going to use this regenerative spiral for more models, I would like to understand, and I would also advise that you make this picture clearer, because I still find it very hard to read, see, and understand.
Okay, so yeah, I'll give the clarity to our graphic people. So I wouldn't be able to fix that. But we'll give that to them to see. So to make the letters bigger or the words bigger, or what? Maybe you can just write the specific request on Slack, and I'll just pass it on to Alex and Alex is here, Alex and Alba, and they can help us fix that. And in terms of the axes, oh, sorry, Oscar, you wanted to answer the axes? No, two.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, Kevin. Yeah. Okay. The axis is the spiral. What it means, the spiral, it's that it's the system, could be the social or environmental, whatever, right? It's the civil system degenerating or regenerating, right? Like when we go upwards, it's towards more complexity, and when we go downwards, it's towards simplicity, because when you're degenerating, what you're doing, it's losing complexity and moving into collapse. And then when we have the energy system, it's because when the red part of the spiral in degeneration means that you need energy, you need to grab energy outside of the system to be able to survive. Then what you are, it's like a simple system that is extracting energy from outside. For example, our society, that it's using old fossil fuels to be able to maintain the whole situation of the system, right? But when you're above in the green spiral, what you're doing is to accumulate all this energy from the sun, as the forest does. And what you do is that every single photon, you make it cycle several times inside the same system, accumulating energy and generating abundance. Then what you have at the top, it's abundance, and what you have at the bottom is scarcity. At the top, you have generating energy, no, accumulating energy from the sun, and really cycling it to generate abundance as a forest, and generate through complexity. Or what you have downward, it's simplicity with needs of tons of energy, not capable of cycling it, very inefficient energetically, and tending to collapse. Yeah? Is that more clear?
It is more clear, but I feel it's still very complex to navigate whatever topic, because it's either we look at something individual and we look at all of those factors,
yeah,
to pinpoint it, but looking at the general situation, I still find it very confusing to navigate with that. And just the description of each word is, as far as I understood it, is a good tool enough to know kind of on a vertical level where you're at in your situation, yes, or in your society, without having to move left and forward, or, you know.
Yeah.
That's as far as I stopped. And then I understand it more, but it's still very complex. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to use this tool unless we practice more, and maybe you give us some more concrete examples. Thank you.
You're totally right in that the levels are only vertical and there's no diagonal. It's only vertical, because when you go down, you have to go into need of energy and simplicity. And when you go up, you have to go into complexity and accumulation of energy. Then it's only vertical. And the way of using it, it's if that, like for me, the best thing of doing it is try to have a clear image of an example of each of the levels, like whatever you want. Like you can make like one very simple, it's the democracy, right? Like you have authority, like a dictatorship, then you have someone very authoritative. I don't know, in someone that is a consultative in, like some party like in Spain, like consultative, I would put, well, most of the political parties are that really, but to try to have an image of something that you would put there, and then try to relate that to other things. I don't know if I think I'm not explaining myself properly. When we talk about energy, at the very bottom, we would have I think I already put these examples, but Repsol going into the Amazon forest, killing a tribe to generate a dam, right? That's a very clear image. Like, or in the case of participation, it's dictatorship. When we move up, it's the image. It's someone very directive, like Pepe, like Aznar, no? In Spain would be a really good example of a directive person. And in the other one, in the environmental, would be an image of Repsol, but instead of being in the Amazon, being here, because it's still like generating a scarcity of energy and precarity of energy for a lot of people in the society. No, it acts the same way, but inside certain limiting boundaries. And then if you keep doing that in each level, you can then project it into yourself, into your family, into your organization, into your project, or into your community by having these references and then comparing it to it. Is like understanding how it brings value, how each step brings value to the system. We can practice it more and put more exercises, but I think the thing is mainly to understand that it just one step more of value, one step more of value, one step more of value. At that, it's a cultural change that generates a whole paradigm. Sorry, Kevin, go.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much. I think for the next exercise, or how I would like to practice, is with specific question. The first question was a global, in your community, where do you place something very global, very broad, without having a particular focus, which made it complicated, because obviously the complexity of the situation, the complexity of the community and our environment. But if we're looking at particular cases as indicators and where we put those points, then I think this is where I understand it better and it would be easier to use.
Yeah, and take things as a whole, always things as a whole, no? Define exactly, I'm going to look into this community, then the whole, no? Or this organization, the whole, and then move the whole as one organism, as one system. And then you move it up and down just to generate the pattern, to see where it is. And you gain all the information. If it's like, okay, this is a step of evolution, then what can I do to bring it a little bit higher? Yeah. Nice. Then
thank you. I might intervene and get into VUCA because we weren't able to do it last time. But yeah, thank you very much for those questions. And again, like we're geeks about this. We love this. This is our lifeblood and what we do every day as our job. So if you ask questions and critical questions, we love them. We don't know anything really. So as Oscar says, everything is a lie. So yeah, we're always super excited to share ideas and also to learn from all of you. And there are so many experienced practitioners here with rich life experiences and professional experiences. So it is really such a pleasure to be in this group. To move us along through VUCA, what I wanted to do was I might just do a share screen to explain what the homework was, and then give you guys 15 minutes to go into your breakout rooms, and then we come back and we see how this is applied. So for just a second, share. Okay. So if you are in the mural, but I can also, I'm sharing my screen, so that should help as well. What our example was to fill in a nested system approach to answer two questions. So the first question is, how are you today? You know? And here, what we were inviting people to do is on a piece of paper, just write down words or phrases or sentences. And it could be like uncertain or excited or inspired or confused, etc. Any words, everything that is descriptive of your state of affairs right now, today, the 8th of February, 2021. And then imagine we're in a time machine, zoom, and we're 5 years from now. So imagine you would have that capacity of forecast. Sorry, not backtrack. That if you could have this capacity of forecast, what is your degree of forecast or prediction that you have for the future? 5 years from now, 8th of February, 2026. So to what degree do you know what your situation is going to be like. Do you know where you'll be living, the country, do you know what the job you'll have? Do you know who you will be with, or where, what your family unit or friend unit looks like, etc. So, and then you do 0 to 10 or 1 to 10, I think it in the end, 1 to 10. So 1 would be, I have no idea, even if I'm going to be in the country where I'm living, let alone the job. And 10 would be like, I know the address of my house, the name of my lover, the job that I have, and what I'll be eating that day. That would be a 10. So the exercise was to do it at a nested level. So again, what Eulalia was saying, that all these frameworks are to think systemically and fractally. So you do it at the self level, then you do it at the community level, at the regional level. So it could be national or regional, and then the planetary level. Asking those 2 questions. And then the second part of the assignment was to look at what is the same and what is different as before. So patterns and outliers, again, to start exercising that systemic thinking capacity. I'm not sure if everybody got that. That's a really quick explanation of the assignment, or if there are questions. Yeah. No? Is it good? So our suggestion, who was able to, let's do it that way. Who was able to do the assignment and didn't have any, okay, so we have a few people here who understood it and were able to do it. Okay, all right. So the proposal here was to go back into your group. Well, it'll be a different group actually, and share some of your reflections at each level, but especially those 2 questions. What are the words that are coming out again and again? Maybe at least more than one place. So in 2 places or more in your nested system. And the next one are, what are the very interesting, curious outliers, those items that are like, why is that word there and nowhere else? And those 2 pieces of information indicate leverage points, indicate potential magical buttons that can actually transform something if we're able to understand them deeply. Yeah? Okay, so we'll send you off into different groups this time, so you guys meet different people, and we'll bring you back, and we'll give you 15 minutes. If you have any questions, we can also hop in and out and make sure that it's all good. Yeah.
Before leaving, Erica, Eulalia is saying that if you can repeat the last question.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering if what I can do is I can also write it in the mural if you need to go back to find that question. But the questions are, and I can even put it in the chat. What are the patterns? Right? So what are the words coming out in all of the levels? And number 2, what are the outliers? And that's an English word. I can't seem to find a translation for it in other languages, but it's basically, what are the strange things or surprising things that don't repeat in other layers, but that give us information nonetheless. So what are the patterns and what are the outliers? In fact, in the mural, we have the 2 columns to start mapping those. And the questions that you are asking at each level is, describe it and then rate it from 1 to 10 for predictability or forecast. Is that more clear? Oh, Kevin is confused. Okay. Yeah, what we can do is write down the questions then, so that here, if you want, you can, I'll write it into the thing, but essentially it's the assignment was to do it at the different nested levels. Okay, so you're asking those 2 different questions at each level. So how are you? How is the system? I'm actually wondering if we can just do it really quickly. Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time. Yeah.
We're happy to understand if the others have understood and in the room.
Okay.
Tell us
Yeah.
what's done, and then we'll catch up.
Okay. Okay. All right. And you know what, actually, Joanne and Kevin, maybe you can stay and not join your group right away, and then I'll explain it then so everybody else can share. Yeah. And then you can click OK and then join your group maybe a minute later. Okay. So just Alex is going to give the group go ahead, and you just click OK.
Did you receive it?
No, we didn't yet. Not yet either, Alex. Huh. I don't know what. Oh, now it is. Great. Super. Thank you. Okay, Kevin, and we have also perhaps, oh no, Joanne already left. Okay.
Can I stay? Oh, he's gone. Well, it's okay.
Okay. Did you have a question, Lola?
No, but I mean, because I've done the exercise, but I kind of got a little bit confused and I didn't really understand.
Okay, yeah, we'll remember, yeah, okay.
I'll just join, listen to the rest of the people, and then see if I have any questions.
Okay, super. Okay. Yeah, we'll explain it a little bit more in detail than the next homework. Aqui em greu. Nos vai generar molde de confusão, semblava. E mira que era fácil. Hi, Josh, did you get the link to the breakout group?
Estic resignant a gent, que hi ha gent que s'hi ha quedat sola.
Ah, okay, okay.
Vale.
Oh.
Hola, regresé. I came back because I was alone in my room. I wasn't sure if there was other people.
Okay, yeah, there's some people who haven't been able to connect. Maybe are there groups with two? Alex?
Yeah, no, Zia, I sent you more than one invitation to another room, but
It didn't come up.
Okay.
I don't know why it isn't working because you are still in the room 9. So I am sending you to other rooms, but you are not joining. Now?
I can see if I can do it. Yeah, okay. And Josh? Oh, Josh was supposed to, I think Josh, you're supposed to be in room 5. Did you get the did you get the invite though? Perhaps not.
I think he did, but he's not listening us maybe.
Okay. And Olu Wakemi is also all alone, so I don't know.
And Josh contestar. I can only listen. I'm busy in work, so I won't join the room.
Okay. Veritat.
Got it. Sorry.
Que raro, igual que tampoc m'ha deixat fer recrear les sales.
Yeah.
Ho he enviat 2 cops i no us ha arribat. I llavors he tornat a obrir les que ja hi havia, perquè no... No ho sé.
Okay. Huh? That was fast. How did it go?
It went well. We had a question.
Yeah,
we
go
need
for it.
similarities. Did you mean like on a personal level, or between what we wrote, each of us wrote, like the all the people in the group, or just for yourself?
Yeah, at a personal level, in your own diagram. Sorry, because I see you over here. In your personal diagram, but also then when you're sharing, then see what comes out in your conversations. Maybe you and Julia also talked about there's lots of changes or complexity and things like that, and that's really valuable information right there.
Okay, so like we had to have like several words for each of the levels, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Super. Okay, now everybody's coming. Just a second, I'm going to switch computers. Hello. Okay. So any reflections or any words that came out that were really, really common or surprising?
I saw, can I speak? Yeah.
See, yes.
I saw a pattern like in our group. There was a maybe like a polarization of stillness and fear and maybe anger and passivity, and then like a potential of change, things that were emerging, things that were expanding.
Okay, really in line. Thank you very much, Eulalia. Super. Any other reflections? Okay. Yeah, and our apologies that this didn't get uploaded. I thought it had, but what we can do is do like a homework page and upload it on the Slack so that it's really clear step by step, and so there's no more confusion. Maybe before we go into what VUCA then means, I can explain if you're doing some kind of activity in nested systems with your group or community or at work or your class. What we usually do is a paper exercise to make it really tactile. So we fold paper 3 times. So this is a paper, you fold it once, 2, and 3 times. And this is kind of a slow revealing of the nested system. And then we invite them to where there's the edge of the paper, to do a rectangle, and then write their name and then 1 and 2 and answer the questions that way. And then with a different color, with the same color, when they do the next level up, I would put the organization. So you do a box all around it all, and then the organization, and then you keep going again and again. So do a box around it all. And so each system closes the next one inside it, and that makes it a little bit more visible. This is actually a really good exercise if you're doing even political analysis or social analysis, and it doesn't have to be VUCA. It's to look for patterns in nested systems. So the more you are able to ask the same questions, it can be very different questions to the ones we have asked, but the more you're able to ask the same questions at different levels, and it's sometimes even hard to identify the levels too. So I understand that was also a challenge. The more we're able to exercise our pattern thinking, and that's systemic thinking, right? And so we're looking for patterns, we're looking for outliers, but we have done this. In fact, I see Zia here. We did this in Honduras with her group, and this is a political analysis tool even, so you can apply it in many different contexts, from human rights to climate change and just look for what's going on. What are the patterns? Why is our world fractal? What's going on? Okay. I don't know if anybody else had any other, I know we have 1 minute left, but I'm going to hand it over to Oscar. Maybe he's going to take three to 5 minutes to explain the actual grid and why VUCA is such a powerful framework for planning, leverage points, et cetera, et cetera. So he's just going to explain really briefly the grid, and then we can continue building upon it over the next few weeks as well.
Okay, I'm going to try to make it really brief, but let's see. Okay, then someone needs to go. I'm sorry that we're getting a little bit late. Okay, then you all heard about the new normality. The book of context was created, was defined like 15 years ago in 2008, when there was the economical crisis, right? And they start talking about the new normality. But in the last decade, even though we were talking about the new normality, many people didn't really understood what that meant. Nowadays, it's very clear. Everyone knows what that means, and we all live it every single day. And the book of context, what it tries to mean is that there's a situation that comes to stay. It's not gonna go away, and doesn't matter if there's vaccines or there's no vaccines, or it doesn't matter. The situation, it's here to stay, and it's gonna go even deeper than what we're living right now. When we define the book of context, there's 4 main characteristics of it. That it's volatile. Volatile, that means that the rhythm of change of the system is increasing, and that we all know exactly what that means right now. It's that it's in certain moments like this, it's so crazy that everything changes week to week with the confinement and the different rules that brings, but also economically and the climate and the social behavior, how people migrate, like the rhythm of change is getting crazy. Uncertainty. The uncertainty, it's related to that right now, like the COVID, it's always the perfect example for this. Like, doesn't matter how many things they do, they have no idea how it's going to come out. That even with the migration happens the same thing, because it's so complex and so huge that it doesn't matter what they try to do, they have no idea how the actions that they propose are going to affect the migration flows. When we go into complexity, it's all the decisions, all the information that you need to take one single decision. Like one of that, it's very clear is that we were in bipartidarism for a long while in many countries. No, we had left and right in many countries. And nowadays, many countries have 8, 10 different political parties, because the decisions that needs to be made, the perspectives, everything, it's becoming much more complex, and the people is starting to, even to government, they have to make deals and to create like groups of 2, 3 parties that govern together, because they're not capable of putting all the people in a same focus, and the things are getting very complex, and probably they'll get more. And the ambiguity, it's an interesting one, because it's with the globalization and everything, it's starting to generate, there's so much information that even maybe some years ago, you could have that, you could talk to one person in your town and you could relate very easily with the information, or the words, the concepts would be like very easy conversation. But nowadays you could have that the people that it's your neighbor, it's actually following an influencer from Mexico, and that he has tons of information about Mexico and using like all those concepts and vocabularies, or really focused on quantum physics, no? And then almost every single conversation that you have in your life, it's an intercultural dialogue. Like, and then you have people like Trump, that it's like uses democracy, and it completely changes the concept of democracy. Like in Catalonia, we have it very clear. We have right, left, and other people in the middle that I don't even know how to define. They all use the same words, democracy, freedom, and they all mean different things, right? And it's this ambiguity that it's generating a lot of confusion. But the really important point about the book of context is to try to understand where are we looking this from. We're looking change going on around us and being like, oh my God, we're in the middle of a storm, everything is changing and everything is moving. But if we try to get out of the storm for a minute and try to look at the whole system, okay, from outside, what we see is that we are floating on a sphere in the middle of the universe that it's moving, okay? And this sphere, it's not moving only in its own axis, but it's also moving around the sun. And the whole solar system, it's moving around the galaxy. And the galaxy is moving in the universe. Then if there's one thing that is constant in the universe, it's change. But we had been for what, 40, 50 years in a system that feels stable since the 60s. Like not more than that. Before we had 2 world wars. Change, it's the constant on evolution, cultural and biological evolution. We always had been changing. And this moment, we just feel that there's a lot of change and wind going on in our system because a rigid system, it's breaking down. You remember when we were talking about the edge of chaos? Like it's too rigid and it's not capable of adapting to the constant change of the planet and the world. And it's just starting to break down. And it's going to keep breaking down. And then we're going to flow into the rhythm of change that it's the constant in this planet. All these fractures that are generating in the system are opportunities for change. All this rigidity of the system, it's the structural violence that obligates us to be in a specific way. We felt it since we were born, in the school, in the university, at work, everywhere. They forced us to be in a specific way, to be part of this rigid system that it's going towards a specific place. And there's a good and a bad way of being in this system. And if you're not in the good side, then you're in the bad one, right? Then all this thing is breaking down and it's starting to open many opportunities for the people that wants to be different and that wants to change things because we don't like how the things had been in the last decades. Then this new normality, it's the place where we are going to be capable of changing what we had been trying to change for a so long time. Because now, if we focus on the rhythm of life and we relate to it in a regenerative perspective, we're going to be capable of starting to change the whole thing. I don't know if I explained myself. I tried to be a little bit fast, but was that clear? Yeah. Then if you look into the slides, well, if you look into the slide of the session 1, where it says VUCA means opportunity, is it changed? Is it corrected? Okay, then this is the good one then. It explains a little bit how that it's an opportunity. When we talk about volatility, if we create our own theories of change, that means strategies, that create strategies counting on change, knowing that change is going to come, that is a huge opportunity because we want things to change. There's many things that are not okay, that it should change, that if we follow the change, if we surf on the edge of chaos and we are capable of generating strategies of change, that is a huge opportunity for us. Complexity, if we start generating interrelations and really knowing how to navigate networks, then complexity is totally okay. There's no problem with complexity because we don't want to accumulate power. And then if we're capable of delegate and really move into networks, it doesn't affect us. There's many people in the social and solidarity economy that it's not really being affected by COVID because the structure, it's a network that is capable of adapting. And many projects that I know in social and solidarity economy are even going better in the COVID situation, because this change is helping them grow. When we talk about uncertainty, the one very important thing here is leverage points that we're going to talk more in next sessions. But that's a key point that comes from Donella Meadows that I was talking before in this session. And the last one, it's with ambiguity. It's how do we understand patterns? Like, we cannot understand the concepts as we used to do before, but how do we understand patterns? And pattern language, it's what we have been looking at with the regenerative spiral, understanding that things move in patterns, that there's similar things that are part of the same pattern. Then don't get caught in dogmas and definitions that are too strict, but try to understand how things flow and evolve. And then ambiguity doesn't really matter. It can even help you, because you can understand how it's flowing and how the patterns are moving. Right? Then I don't want to...
Name of the person you just mentioned?
Donella Meadows.
Oh, yeah.
And then, just to close, because I'm worried that you guys probably have, it's late. What we're proposing, it's in the opening, it's an exercise. The step one would be define a community or an organization that you belong to. Maybe that's what you already did in the last, could be the same one that you already did in the last exercise, okay? But you have to belong to it, because then the first system is you. The second system is a community or the organization. And define the third system, that could be the region or the nation where your community belongs to. Si no em connecto, em desapareix. Okay. Then, when you have the three nested systems, me, the community, and the nation or the region, what we're going to do is to put that community or organization in the regenerative spiral and try to define why it's there. Why do we put it there? Maybe, Kevin, maybe we can do it through finding different examples that relate to it, no? And then try to find the patterns and the different criteria, characteristics that we think it's similar to those examples that we're thinking of, right? When we have that second step down, then we go into VUCA and try to see how these four things of VUCA is affecting our community or organization, okay? The four that I just explained. And the fifth one, when you have all that clear, try to see how this new reality, this new normality, it's opening opportunities for our organization or community to go up the regenerative spiral. Okay? And try to generate strategies from there. And in the next sessions, we'll look more into strategies, but it's really good that you guys are starting to generate your own. Julia, go ahead.
I have a kind of request. May we have some documents or fonts that are available that you use to prepare that kind of document that we are using, maybe in Slack, so we can go deeper in some of the argument that we love most?
Absolutely. We have tons of examples. So in both English and Spanish. So I can even upload like this done for actual projects that we've done. Yeah, good. Nice.
Yeah, I would like to use, if you can add this, because you're bringing a lot of new tools and they are getting already very complex. So it would help to do the exercises with a practical example that helps navigate our mindset to what you want us to do. Thank you.
Wonderful idea. Excellent. Okay, so we can even do that with VUCA. We can even upload a couple examples as well for the past. And also on Slack, because we didn't have enough time, but we can explain, it's in the session plan, but we can explain how in person, if you're with a group, on the land, how to do the edge of chaos. It's super fun and you go really deep. So we can explain all of those examples that you can do as an exercise that can even be 45 minutes long in a group. You know, so we just look on the Slack and also on the Google Drive, and we'll be uploading those in the next few days. Okay. But yeah, super, really, really good suggestions. All suggestions are welcome. This is co-creation space. So
Erika, sorry, would you be able to upload to this tool like with the paper, with the folding paper? Like,
yes, I actually have that
didn't
written
really get
out.
it.
So yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
yeah, no problem. Yeah. Okay, so I'm writing. Okay, now I have at least 6 things to do. You guys are giving me homework. What is that? All right, just to respect the time, it's already 1:15. So what we'll do is bid adieu now and put up all of the stuff online. But thank you so much for such engaging questions as well this session and the last session. Muchas gracias. And we see you on Monday next week, and maybe with a new face. Okay. Salud.